Welcome, Professional Rookies Podcast. I'm your host, Rini Angolia. Co-host, Brian Ferreira, sitting across from me. Beef, how you doing?
Truth be told, I'm doing okay. I'm a little disappointed this week with the brackets.
Oh, here we go. Let's hear it.
Well, you know me. I'm a Nutley guy. My alma mater, Seton Hall. I watched and listened to the game, and they shit. Can you say shit the bed?
I think we could say. I think shit still contemplate. This will still be a clean podcast.
Yeah, it's clean, but they didn't play.
But listen,
they played pretty shitty.
So Seton Hall out.
Way early.
But St. Peter's.
Yes, let's talk about the other Jersey team, the Cinderella story.
The lowest ranked team to move up. I mean,
to the Elite Eight.
To the Elite Eight. There was a player on the team from Nutley, which is where you're from.
You
got a mushstache similar to him. I don't think you.
I'm rocking the beard, but
I don't think you had a jump shot as good as his was. No. And their coach Shaheen Holloway is now leaving and going to Seton Hall, which is his alma mater. So
that's right.
You feel good about that.
I'm hoping. I got big hopes for next year, and I'd like to say that kid out of Nutley is the second best thing that came out of Nutley besides me.
Besides
you.
Yeah. Your sisters are ahead of you. We'll leave
That's
that
for a
there.
whole nother show.
So, thanks for joining us. Crime and sports, that's kind of what we do with our podcast. I'd like to recap what we did last week. So if you didn't catch last week's show, we're just messing with the soundboard here because I can sometimes talk really loud and it goes in the red. So again, we're professional rookies, so we're figuring it all out. But last week's show, we talked about the Henry Ruggs DUI, where there was a death involved. I thought it was a fascinating podcast, very informative. And again, we try to do pods where, yes, sports people are involved, but it transcends sports. These topics are larger than sports. DUI is so important, and it's something, I tweeted it out the other night, it's something that has affected all of us. If not you personally, you know someone that it's affected, and it's something that's totally avoidable. That's why I thought last week's topic was very important. And so this week, I thought another really good topic to touch on was, and it's been in the news lately because it just happened, the West Point Cadets fentanyl overdose down in Wilton Manors, which is Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So just briefly, 6 total people overdose. And again, a lot of different reports out there. So we did our best in gathering all the intel we could, but 6 total people overdosed. 5 were West Point cadets. 1's confirmed as a football player. There's reports that there was 2, but 1 was confirmed. 2 got put on ventilators, so it was very serious. Reports I've gathered now says they're off the ventilators. I would assume they're still in the hospital. Again, these are just reports. This happened on March 10th. They were on spring break, Airbnb down there, and they ordered up some cocaine, and they got cocaine with fentanyl, which is happening all over the country. And so, luckily to this point, no one's passed away.
We haven't lost anybody in that one.
But it's very, very serious. Now, the Broward County Drug Task Force, 2 days later, did a great investigation. They were able to arrest the drug dealer, Axel Giovanni, and I believe his last name is Casillas, 21 years of age. They set up a deal with him where he sold them 43 grams of cocaine. That's trafficking amount. That's a large amount, correct, Brief?
Yeah. Trafficking in Florida is 28 grams or over. So he's obviously almost double over that. And
so, the other thing that was surprising, my wife goes, man, I didn't even realize West Point cadets went on spring break. I think a lot of people think that.
Right.
But they get time off. I think most West Point cadets, when it's spring break time, they just kind of go home and relax because their academics are so structured there. Any of the military academies, very structured.
Right.
If you're not playing like a sanctioned NCAA sport, you're basically mandated to play an intramural sport. So there's a lot of extracurricular. So these kids are super busy. Wow. And so usually they want to go home and relax. These kids wanted to come to Florida, which is fine, but boy, you want to take some cocaine and there's fentanyl in it. And so just a horrific incident that happened. And so usually we bring you a special guest, but we are the special expert guest this week. Now, Beef has a lot more. I did my share of drug investigations. Beef has a lot more experience in drug investigations, especially with this topic we're going to talk about. So I'm going to defer to him a lot today. I think I'm going to pepper you with questions. But yeah, just a serious topic. And again, luckily, no one passed away.
Yeah. That's a miracle in and of itself, especially with this fentanyl going. All it takes is one time.
So, again, it happened March 10th, so it's very early, right?
Right.
And so the numbers we gave you, West Point did confirm in press releases that there was 5 cadets,
Right.
and 1 was a football player. So we know that's confirmed. No names out there, obviously.
No.
They're probably looking at expulsion, but we'll talk about that on the back end. I want to ask you right off, Beef, like, what is fentanyl? Because you hear it, right, in the news, and I think a lot of people are like, well, they know it's a drug or a sort of drug, but, like, what is it?
Well, fentanyl it's a synthetic opioid, which means obviously it's made in a lab. It's not something that occurs naturally, and it was developed for cancer patients because of the pain. It's 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine.
Yeah.
And it's something that it affects people differently. But you see a lot of almost like psychosis. A lot of times when people take it, you see like this euphoric rush. They're not in their right mind. They make very bad decisions if they can even stand the hit. You know what I'm saying? If it's the first time, sometimes they don't even make it that far.
So I want to repeat what you just said because I have it on my notes as well. 50, and this is CDC, 50 times stronger than heroin.
Yeah.
Think about heroin, how strong heroin is, and 100 times stronger than morphine. 2 drugs that you know are really strong, and that's
stuff you don't want to mess with at all.
So why? I think the next question people have is why. I mean, I know the answer, but why do drug dealers use fentanyl, and how do they go about using it? If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's highly addictive. Yeah, and it's the way it started, from what I understand, is they were using subcutaneous patches. They would put the patches on the cancer patients, and it would go through the skin, and it would be like a meter dose. And I remember 10, 12 years ago hearing about how these people that were diverting it, they were basically sucking on the patches, trying to get all the fentanyl out of it. And then it becomes the thing where you start seeing illegal fentanyl coming in, being manufactured mainly in Mexico, and then coming through the southern border. And it's getting mixed in with everything.
So is it a powder that looks like cocaine or looks like heroin? What color is it?
It can look different.
Okay.
We've seen they call it like concrete. We've seen it's like a gray.
Okay.
Gray death, I think they call some of it purple. We've seen purple,
really?
Yellow. You can see yellow. You can see any color that you can imagine pretty much. Well, I shouldn't say that. Mainly the purple, the gray, the yellow, white, absolutely white. So yes, it can look like cocaine. It can look like heroin. And a lot of times what we're seeing is it's getting cut into all these other drugs.
Well, that's my next question. So it's coming through Mexico for the most part.
Sure.
Is it cut in Mexico mixed with, let's say, cocaine, because that's the topic we're talking about here, and then it comes across the border, so then a drug dealer in Florida here buys what he believes is cocaine, and he doesn't know the fentanyl's in it, or would he be the one to cut the fentanyl in it, or could it happen? I mean, I'm assuming both ways.
No, it's kind of a thing where I think it's coming across more pure, and then what it's doing is they're taking it here, and they'll cut it. And like I said, in our experience,
so a bigger drug dealer here, the distributor will cut it, and then send it out.
Every drug dealer will take like a bigger amount, and then they cut it. They call it stepping on it. They'll cut it with all kinds of different things. Usually it's not another drug. It's like some type of filler almost.
So you're getting straight fentanyl, which really is
they're,
like
they're taking the fentanyl, but then they'll cut it with cocaine, or they'll cut it with. We're seeing a lot of pills, believe it or not. People, they take these pills. They get prescribed pills, Oxycontin, Oxycodone, opioids. Yes, and then so what happens is, after a while, you can't find them anymore. You can't get a doctor to prescribe anymore, so you have to go start looking on the street. And now what we're really seeing is, this is where it really gets bad, is when people think they're buying pills and they cut them, they press these pills to look just like the real thing.
And it's straight fentanyl.
There's fentanyl in there. If it may not be straight fentanyl, but most times, there's fentanyl in there with whatever else they're making the pills with. And people don't realize they're getting fentanyl, and they're taking these pills and these tablets, and you're done.
I'm guessing a lot cheaper. Is that why? Why are the drug dealers pushing this fentanyl into other drugs? What's the main purpose, if there is one?
I wouldn't necessarily say it's cheaper. I just think it gets people hooked faster. It's a bigger high.
And I guess there's a ton of it out there coming across. So that's probably
But
easy.
if you look at somebody that's a heroin addict and's been a heroin addict for a long time, after a while, your body builds up a tolerance. and then you need something bigger. You need something more, so you start looking at this fentanyl because it's like the next big thing. So they need more. And you can use less fentanyl than you have to use heroin. I mean, people, this drug is so addicting that, you see, they know that they're going to overdose. These people that are using it, most of them know they're going to overdose at some point in time. You've talked to, if they survived an overdose and you talk to them, they're like, yeah, I overdosed like a week ago or 2 weeks ago. And they come right back for more. It's scary.
But those are the people, as you said, that are addicts that unfortunately have a tolerance in their body.
But I don't know how you do that.
Correct. I don't either. But when you're spring breaker, right? When you're five
so back
West
to this.
Point cadets or, a couple other people that were there, listen, you shouldn't even be doing cocaine. I mean, for God's sakes. I mean, go to spring break, have a good time. You want to drink some beers, have some shots. Like, I get it. I went to spring break.
Sure.
What are you doing ingesting cocaine, first of all, and then second of all, from a drug dealer, which obviously you don't know.
Right.
It boggles my mind, especially, West Point is, it's the best of the best, right? Those are good minds, good people.
You have to get like a congressional letter of recommendation to get in, for God's sake.
So, and to give people, this stat will blow your mind too,
Yeah.
how deadly fentanyl is.
Ugh.
So and this is a CDC stat, much as you can trust CDC. That's all I'll say.
It's not an asterisk near it.
From April 2020 to April 2021, so a 1 year span.
Right.
The most overdose deaths in the history of our country. Over 100,000 overdoses. Yeah. Okay? 64,000 of them, if my numbers are correct, were fentanyl related. So either straight fentanyl or fentanyl mixed in with drugs. 30% spike in overdose deaths. I mean, that's an epidemic.
Huge.
Like, we have an issue.
Course. Yeah, and you hate to use that word, but it is.
It is, and it's affecting young people.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I watched a news report where after the West Point cadet case broke, they were interviewing spring breakers because it's the middle of spring break. And most of these young teenagers that are down there, college kids, they don't even know. They didn't even hear about it. And then when you tell them, they're like, oh, yeah, maybe I'll be a little more cautious. It's like, it's just, I don't know the answer, but I think like a podcast like this to get information out of how potent fentanyl is and that it is getting, you think you're getting something else and you're getting fentanyl and it could be lights out super quick.
Absolutely. There's a reason why we talk about these addicts again. There's a reason why they walk around with Narcan. They all walk around with Narcan.
So, and explain to people what Narcan is. Because as police officers, towards the end of my career, we were every police officer, detective, you're assigned Narcan. You carry Narcan with you. Kind of explain to people what that is and what it does.
So what Narcan is, I hate to use the word antidote, but I guess it's a countermeasure to the fentanyl. The drug itself is naloxone.
Easy for you.
So let's just stay with Narcan. Yeah. But the drug itself, what that does is it binds to the same receptors in your brain that fentanyl binds to, and so it blocks the fentanyl from all of the fentanyl from binding. And it's pretty amazing to see somebody that gets a dose of fentanyl. Narcan will actually like right back to it. Now it may take 1 or 2 doses, and the good thing about Narcan is if you're not under the influence of fentanyl or an opioid,
it doesn't hurt you.
It doesn't hurt you.
See, that's what I was going to ask. So if it's a straight heroin overdose or cocaine, you give it to the person.
Well, yeah, even if it's like, let's say they're exhibiting symptoms of some type of fentanyl overdose, but they're not. I mean, there's nothing. It could be another medical episode. It doesn't hurt them.
It's a nasal spray, correct?
It is. Yeah, it's right up the nose. Yep.
So people are asking, but you said it right now. It's kind of sold to the regular public now. You can get it, correct?
Yeah, you can get it. There's many different channels to go ahead and get that.
So you ask, okay, police are assigned it obviously for what you just said, right? If you get there and they're exhibiting signs and you give them Narcan. Unfortunately, police and firemen have to use it all the time because it's such fentanyl. And explain this to people, like if you touch it, if you inhale it, right? If you and in the West Point case, there was a couple people there that were giving mouth to mouth,
right?
And then they were affected by the fentanyl and had to go to the hospital. Kind of explain how that works, because I think that shows you if you're not using it, someone else is, and they go down and you try to give them mouth to mouth and then you're affected, that should show you right there how strong it is.
Sure. Mainly, and again, this is something we have to worry about as first responders too.